Imagine holding in your hand a small piece of American history, a coin that has traveled through decades, carrying with it stories of an entire nation. The Jefferson nickel of 1972 may look like an ordinary 5-cent piece to many, but to collectors, historians and coin enthusiasts, it represents an era of American coinage design, minting practices, and the enduring legacy of Thomas Jefferson himself. To understand the full history of the 1972 Jefferson nickel, we must first go back to the roots of the Jefferson nickel itself and trace the journey from its creation in 1938 through the changing decades until we reach the year 1972, a year marked by a fascinating chapter in the history of this coin. The Jefferson nickel was introduced in 1938, replacing the beloved Buffalo nickel that had been in circulation since 1913. The Buffalo nickel was a bold, artistic design, but it presented difficulties in striking details clearly and maintaining dies over years of heavy use. The United States Mint held a design competition in 1938, and the winner was Felix Schlag, a German-born American sculptor. Schlag's design honored Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States and author of the Declaration of Independence. The obverse, or front of the coin, featured a left-facing portrait of Jefferson, while the reverse displayed Jefferson's Virginia home, Monticello, a neoclassical masterpiece of architecture. From the moment it was introduced, the Jefferson nickel became a cornerstone of American coinage, and it carried immense symbolism. Jefferson was a figure of enlightenment, philosophy, liberty, and leadership, and Monticello represented innovation and vision, both in design and in the spirit of the young American republic. Through the decades, the Jefferson nickel went through wartime changes, most notably between 1942 and 1945, when silver was added to the alloy. Because of the demand for nickel metal during World War II, after the war in 1946, the coin returned to its standard composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel. By the time we reached 1972, the Jefferson nickel had already been circulating for 34 years. It had endured multiple presidencies, shifts in culture and economy, and it continued to be struck at 3 different mints: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. 1972 was an interesting year, because the Jefferson nickel was still struck with Felix Schlag's original design, though with slight modifications that had been made in the early 40s to improve the clarity of lettering and details on Monticello. The coins of this year carry the familiar Jefferson portrait on the obverse with the motto, "In God We Trust," inscribed to the left of his profile, liberty, and the date to the right, and the mint mark placed to the right of Monticello on the reverse. The 1972 nickel was struck in large numbers, and therefore it is considered common in circulation. However, what makes this year fascinating is not just the numbers struck, but the context of American history at the time, and the small variations and minting quality that collectors today carefully study. 1972 was a time when the nation was going through significant changes. The Vietnam War was ongoing. The Watergate scandal was beginning to brew, and the American economy was facing inflationary pressures. While these events were unfolding every day, Americans still used the Jefferson nickel in their daily purchases. Whether it was buying a cup of coffee, a newspaper, or paying for parking, these nickels passed through the hands of millions, weaving themselves into the economic and cultural fabric of the nation. When we look at mintages, the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of nickels in 1972 with no mint mark, while the Denver Mint struck a similar amount. Identified by the small D mint mark on the reverse, the San Francisco Mint, on the other hand, struck proof coins in much smaller quantities. These proof nickels were specially made with polished dies and planchets, producing coins with a mirror-like surface and sharp details. Collectors highly prize these proofs, and in 1972, the San Francisco Mint created both regular proof and what are now called deep cameo proofs, which display strong frosted designs that contrast beautifully against the mirrored background. For collectors today, one of the most important aspects of the 1972 Jefferson nickel is condition coins that were struck in Circulation numbers from Philadelphia and Denver are abundant, but finding one in pristine uncirculated condition with full steps on Monticello is a challenge. The term full steps refers to the details on the steps of Jefferson's Monticello on the reverse. If these steps are fully visible and sharply struck without breaks, the coin becomes significantly more valuable due to the difficulty of achieving such strikes during the minting process. In 1972, many Jefferson nickels, even from fresh dies, failed to produce fully struck steps because of striking pressure and die wear. Thus, collectors seek out those rare examples of 1972 nickels with full steps, whether from Philadelphia or Denver. Coins with 5 or 6 full steps can command impressive premiums in the numismatic market when graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC. Such coins can achieve high mint state grades and represent the pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting for that year. The 1972 proof nickels from San Francisco are also noteworthy. The deep cameo varieties, particularly in high grade, are highly sought after and represent a level of craftsmanship and finish that separates them from circulation strikes. These coins are not only treasures for collectors, but also benchmarks in the study of the proof coinage of the United States during the 1970s. We reflect on the history of the 1972 Jefferson nickel. We can also place it within the broader story of American coinage at that time. The U.S. Mint in the 1970s was transitioning toward more modern technology, but still relied heavily on methods that had been in place for decades. Die maintenance, planche preparation, and striking pressure all played roles in the quality of coins minted. That year, errors and varieties from 1972 also intrigue collectors. Missed strikes off center strikes and double die varieties can occasionally be found among Jefferson nickels of this year. Though they are scarce when discovered, they can become valuable. Treasures beyond minting details. The 1972 Jefferson nickel carries cultural significance as well. It reflects a nation that was honoring its past by keeping Jefferson on its coinage, while also moving into an uncertain future. It was a time when Americans could still purchase goods with a handful of coins, yet the value of money was shifting due to inflation. Still, the nickel remained steady as a symbol of small transactions and everyday life. When you hold a 1972 Jefferson nickel, you are holding a coin that bridges generations. A coin that carries the legacy of Felix Schlage's design, the enduring image of Jefferson, and the architectural wonder of Monticello. It is a piece of history that reminds us of where America stood in the early 70s, of the challenges the nation faced, and of the continuity of its currency system through decades of change. Collectors often describe the Jefferson nickel series as one of the most approachable for beginners, while also challenging for advanced numismatists. The 1972 nickel exemplifies this duality, common enough for anyone to find in change, yet with rare varieties, conditions, and full-step designations that make it an exciting pursuit for experts. Whether you are studying its metallurgical composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, its minting process, its place in the economy, or its cultural role, the 1972 Jefferson nickel offers endless avenues for exploration. The beauty of coins, like the 1972 Jefferson nickel, lies in their ability to tell stories. They are not merely pieces of metal. They are artifacts of a living history. They speak of art, design, politics, economy, and the daily life of a people who use them without giving a second thought. Yet for us today, they are windows into the past. A 2-hour exploration of the 1972 Jefferson nickel reveals just how deep and fascinating the world of numismatics can be, from the origin of the series to the minting details of that specific year, from the proof strikes to the hunt for full-step examples, from its circulation role in a turbulent America to its continuing place in collections worldwide. This coin represents more than its face value. It represents history, heritage, and the timeless human fascination with the things we create and carry with us every day.